Okay, imagine this. Almost overnight, the United States decides to completely change how it projects its power and influence around the world. We're not talking about troops or treaties, but about taking apart a 60-year-old institution. We're going to break down how a massive shift like this could actually happen and what it would really mean for America's place in the world.
It sounds pretty dramatic, right? But in this scenario, that's exactly what happens. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, a cornerstone of American foreign policy since the 60s, effectively just stops existing. So how on earth does something this big happen so fast, and what comes next? All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at how an agency like this can just disappear. Then, we'll dive into the new system that's centered in the State Department and the big philosophical change from aid to investment. After that, we'll see the real-world impact, ask what it all means for American soft power, and finally, explore 3 possible futures.
So first up, how do you make an entire federal agency just vanish? You might think it would take years of new laws, but it turns out you don't need a big act of Congress. All you need are the right bureaucratic levers. I mean, just look at how fast this all went down. An executive order kicks things off in January, and by July 1st, that's just over 5 months, USAID is out of the aid game. The key wasn't just a simple announcement. It was a very specific and really powerful tool that the White House used.
And this is it. This is the secret sauce. It's a tool called apportionment authority. Basically, the White House's budget office, the OMB, was given the power to control the money before it even got to the agencies. By setting up this kind of choke point, they could pretty much just turn off the tap for USAID, giving the White House direct political control over every single dollar.
Okay, so with USAID out of the picture, a whole new machine had to be built to take its place. And this new machine was built right inside the U.S. State Department. Let's take a look at how this new command structure was pieced together.
The new system is all about one word: centralization. To make that happen, a new Undersecretary for Foreign Assistance, just called F, is created, and they report directly to the Secretary of State. Then, to make sure there's tight control, a powerful new oversight office is built to monitor and vet absolutely every program. The actual doing of aid gets pushed down to the embassies, but the policy and, most importantly, the money are held very tightly at the top.
And you have to understand, the scale of this task was just monumental. The State Department didn't just inherit a mission. It inherited 951 existing awards. That's worth almost $75 billion. And it was suddenly scattered across 14 different parts of the department. Trying to manage that is an absolutely incredible challenge.
But this is where things get really interesting. This wasn't just about moving boxes on an org chart. No, this was a fundamental change in philosophy. The whole reason for American foreign assistance was being rewired from the ground up.
And this slide really nails the pivot. The old way of doing things was about delivering services, running these broad development programs, and working mostly through NGOs. The new paradigm, it's all about trade, investment, and finance. It narrows the focus to very specific humanitarian and health issues, and it much prefers direct government-to-government deals instead of that huge network of nonprofits.
You can see this shift clear as day in the budget request. Just look at how 2 major traditional accounts, disaster assistance and refugee assistance, are basically zeroed out. Now that money isn't just gone, it's been rebundled into these new, super flexible funds, like the emergency refugee account, that are designed for quick, direct use that's tied to immediate national interests.
So that's the big picture from Washington. But what does a revolution in policy and paperwork actually look like for people on the ground? Let's zoom in on 3 different case studies.
First up, we've got Kenya. It quickly became a real-world test for this new model, and it showed both the immediate, messy disruption and the new way of doing business.
The immediate result of this changeover? Chaos. Even with special exceptions made for life-saving HIV treatments, the bureaucratic plumbing just completely broke down. As one report put it, the payment system was effectively down, leaving commodities stranded. And that's not just jargon. That means life-saving medicines were stuck in a warehouse instead of getting to patients, all because of an administrative meltdown.
Next, let's turn to Ukraine, a high-stakes, high-pressure situation where the new system's ability to keep track of the money was put to the test right away.
So you've got the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which is the nonpartisan government watchdog, and they immediately raised a huge red flag. The GAO found that as the State Department took over, American oversight of money going straight into the Ukrainian government's budget actually went down, and that lack of transparency is a massive risk, especially in a conflict zone.
And finally, let's look at Haiti. This is a case that really highlights just how risky this new model can be. Between 2021 and 2024, the U.S. sent over $1 billion there, into an environment where keeping a close eye on the money is everything.
In a place as challenging as Haiti, you absolutely rely on experienced partners on the ground to stop fraud and make sure aid isn't stolen. But this whole transition ended up disrupting the very systems that were designed to be that safety net. It created huge vulnerabilities right when they were needed the most.
When you add up all these individual impacts, they lead to a much bigger, more strategic question. What does all of this do to America's influence in the world? You know, it's soft power.
Soft power isn't just about being liked. It's the ability to get what you want through attraction instead of force. And when it comes to foreign aid, you build that attraction by being a reliable, credible partner over the long haul. It's an asset that is really hard to build and, well, very easy to lose. And the scale of what's at stake here is just enormous. In 2024, the U.S. was providing roughly 30% of all official development aid in the entire world. Being that go-to donor generated a huge amount of goodwill and influence. This new approach puts the future of all that influence into question.
Okay, so this massive change has happened. The old system is gone, the new one is here. But the story's not over. Where does all of this go from here? Let's explore 3 plausible futures.
First, there's consolidation and contraction. The new model could just become permanent, with the U.S. focusing on a much smaller, more transactional kind of aid. Second, you could see a hybrid restoration. Congress might push back, bring back some funding, and force stricter oversight, creating a kind of messy but maybe more accountable system. Or third, outsourced influence, where the U.S. starts relying more on big institutions like the World Bank, which gets things done but weakens that direct Made in America brand of influence.
And all of this leaves us with one fundamental question. This whole shift really boils down to a bet on how influence actually works. In a world that's getting more and more competitive, is American influence best won through the slow, steady work of partnership or through faster, more direct power plays? The answer to that is going to shape America's role in the world for decades.